Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of our CISOTalks podcast. I'm Jason Coggins and this is Aidan Simister with Lepide.
Hi there.
So we really want you to get involved with our conversations. I want you to hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon to stay up to date with our regular podcasts and new updates. And let's get to it.
Thanks, Jason.
So Aidan, it's been widely accepted that the average tenure for a CISO in today's world is around 18 months. Now that seems quite short. Do you agree?
18 months is nothing. I mean, you've barely got to understand the enterprises and the risks that are within the enterprises. So 18 months is barely enough to get your feet under the desk, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of challenges. I think that certainly from quite a lot of the CISOs that we spoke to, there's quite a lot of frustration. You know, they understand the risks, they understand the severity of the risks, but I still think that a lot of boards are struggling it's just not a concept that they get. It's alien to them. And I think that it's getting better. I think that it's making mainstream news now, and I think we're becoming more socially aware around the kind of threats that are out there and the risks are out there, and data privacy in general is becoming more of a widely accepted topic. And but I still think that CISOs get quite frustrated when trying to get their message across to the board. I think that's perhaps one reason. Right. I think the other challenge is there just simply aren't enough skills to go around. I think there's quite a lot of demand for CISOs. Yeah, I don't think there were enough enough CISOs really to go around. So I feel that there's an element of perhaps job hopping in some circumstances that happens as well. I've definitely seen that quite a bit as well.
With you, yeah. Makes sense. But there is an objection or an argument that, and it's a fact that only 70% of Fortune 500 companies have a CISO in place.
Right.
Now that says to me that the other 30% simply don't see a value in having a CISO in their organisation.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes obviously it gets merged into other roles, and other people within the organisation take on this responsibility of being a CISO. So I don't think it's necessarily true to say that they're not being responsible or they don't have the right security. But I think the value of a CISO is it gives a single person to have that proper accountability towards keeping the information within the organisation secure, and merging this into other roles, perhaps giving that as a responsibility for the CIO, or just having an IT security person within the organisation, not quite enough. I think that probably more of these organisations need to have someone that is appointed to the board that has favour with the board, that's able to explain clearly what the risks are, because it is a big business problem.
Right.
I was reading a study the other week, and you and I were talking about this, that they were saying that in the US, cybersecurity risk is viewed on par with that of a global recession. Right? So boards are taking cybersecurity as seriously as the risks of a recession, and I think that's exactly the right attitude we should be taking towards this type of risk.
Gotcha, yeah. I mean, I'd like to agree with you. I can certainly see that that way of thinking, but I'm a little bit concerned that some organisations are appointing a CISO to be that scapegoat. It's a scary world out there, and it's an IT subject that I don't necessarily know very well myself, being a board member or a CEO. I need to employ someone who understands it, that I can hand it to, and if it goes wrong, their head's on the chopping block for. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think though, I mean, I think in some circumstances it's an impossible role, and I think that you can do everything, but ultimately, if someone wants to get into your organisation, if someone wants to get your data, if they want to, they will find a way. It's increasingly difficult to keep up with cybersecurity risks and cybersecurity sector. It's very, very difficult to do. It's also, especially if you're not given adequate resources or budget as well, that makes it even harder. And I think that the nature of cybersecurity is perpetrators are very agile, whereas boards aren't. And it's very difficult to keep up the risks. So while a CISO may have been doing a really good job, the reality is if they are still victim of a breach, if they're victim of a security issue, Well, absolutely. The first person they go to is the CISO. They're like, well, what happened? What went wrong?
Right.
And it might not necessarily be their fault.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So, yeah.
So, all right then. So, the threat landscape's ever changing. It's quite a dynamic environment.
Very much.
So, with that in mind, how much of a, or is it the CISO's job to have to educate the board on these ever emerging threats? Do you think it's actually part of their job? Should they be educating their board or dealing with it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think that what really matters, I think, when we look at some of the more successful CISOs that we've spoke to,
yeah.
I think it's the CISOs, and it's an obvious thing, really, but it's those CISOs that are able to translate the real business benefits and the business value and the business risk as well. It's not about sort of explaining concepts around ransomware, explaining the concepts around least privilege or some of these more sort of technical concepts to the board. It's irrelevant. You need to sort of break it down. It needs to be concise. It needs to be presented to the board in a way in which it really and concisely shows the business value of operating in a certain way. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
And when you say business value, you mean assign a dollar sign to the problem.
Yeah. And I think you also it needs to be, it almost needs to be a sum. It needs to sort of calculate how likely is it going to be that we are going to become a victim of this type of a threat.
Okay.
Based on our sector, based on our gaps in our security strategy.
Yeah.
Versus and what would be the impact of such a threat if it's even quantifiable, versus how much it will actually cost to prevent ourselves from that threat or that threat as well. I think that it has to be a sort of a combination. But I think the other thing that really matters as well is I don't think it's just about persuading the board as a whole. I think every single person within the board has their own individual agendas. They have their own individual things that they want to get from the business and the organisation as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think that to be an effective CISO, you need to kind of almost going to create allies. You need to understand the different people in the organisation and their drivers and their motivations. And you need to make sure that individually they understand the benefits of spending the time and the money with cybersecurity, the real risks that it's going to help them individually in their different roles sort of fulfill, really, I suppose. Yeah.
And that's what the CISO has to do, essentially, is appeal to every individual in that decision-making process.
It's quite frustrating for a CISO because in other roles, they're more defined and clear cut. But I think that it's quite an uphill struggle for quite a lot of CISOs. I think that you've got to over communicate. You've got to spend a huge amount of your time trying to educate, and I think you've got to be careful. I think sometimes we've seen CISOs sort of almost fear sell, if you like, where they're trying to persuade the board to come on board with their ideas that are based on doom and gloom. And the problem is you end up with this challenge where the board just become almost like it's the boy who cried wolf almost. And that's really not, you've got to be really careful about how you communicate it.
Okay, right.
So I think that you've got to be quite measured in how you do it. Certainly the most effective CISOs that we've engaged with are the ones that are able to break it down into business value and really kind of come up with that clear way of communicating the message.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us on episode 3 of our CISOTalks podcast. We've really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah, next week we're going to be interviewing some CISOs, out there in the field to get their insight into what they think about the topics we're talking about as well.
Yeah, so if you want to keep updated, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon as well to keep updated, and we'll see you soon.